Kirk Franklin broke down in tears as he accepted the Icon Award at the 2025 BT Awards. The prize wasn't what made the news, though. That's what he said next. In front of everyone, Kirk took the attention off of himself and put it all on his wife. The crowd was stunned and silent when what happened next happened. No one saw it coming. Did it have to do with love, telling the truth, or something else? Join us, because this wasn't just a strong moment. It was the beginning of history. Kirk Franklin has been in the news before. For decades, the gospel star has been breaking new ground in faith, music, and society. But something changed at the 2025 BET Awards. No longer was it just about the music. It was real. It was very close to home. Even the most famous people couldn't say a word about it. Many people thought Kirk would give a polished speech full of praise for people in the music business after receiving the prestigious Ultimate Icon Award. Instead, he stopped, got emotional, and did something that not many people expected. He used his whole moment to honor the woman who was by his side through all of his problems, setbacks, and stages. He looked at his wife Tammy and said, "I will never be able to repay you." The crowd was silent. This video goes into great detail about what made this moment so powerful, including the history of Kirk and Tammy Franklin's emotional journey and the rumors that may have revealed even more than what was said on stage. You won't believe the hard times this couple has been through, from private fights to public forgiveness. This speech may have been his most important message yet. Remember to stay tuned, because in the next parts we'll look at how Kirk's award show and surprise speech went. It gets interesting when you think about the most controversial parts of his career and how Tammy stood by him. There were tensions and whispers behind the scenes about what Kirk didn't say, and this moment could change his reputation forever. Let's start. It looked like the 2025 BET Awards would be one of the most talked about nights in recent music history. A-list stars' surprise meetings and moments that broke records were all on the red carpet. However, when the show changed to the Ultimate Icon honor, everyone knew that something big was about to happen. They were right, as the host presented Kirk Franklin, calling him a breakthrough gospel innovator, cultural leader, and spiritual voice. A huge screen showed clips from his more than 30-year career. Some of his hits from the early 1990s, lively choir performances, and emotional conversations were shown quickly. Stars like Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Tyler Perry, and Fantasia were in the crowd, and as Kirk walked onto the stage, they cheered loudly. But the event wasn't just a surprise party. Kirk spoke up. After that, something changed. The confident, charming performer, who was always quick with a joke or a prayer, stopped talking all of a sudden. His eyes were heavy, you could tell. "Now I understand that this is about my job." His voice was shaking when he started. "But I can't talk about my wins without mentioning the person who helped me get through the bad times." People let out gasps. Some people in the crowd reached for tissues because they could tell this wasn't going to be an ordinary award speech. Kirk then talked about his worst times, including times when he was addicted, in trouble, and even embarrassed in public. He also said that his wife Tammy never left his side. He pointed right at her. She was sitting in the front row in a beautiful black dress, and tears were already in her eyes. "Dear Tammy Franklin, I will never be able to thank you enough. You prayed for me when I was hurt. You loved me even when I didn't love myself. You stayed. There was silence in the room. There was silence, no cheering, and no moving, but most people missed this twist. There was a long history of sadness, betrayal, reconciliation, and even scandal behind that tribute that Kirk chose not to talk about for now. Kirk Franklin used to be a guy who was quietly at odds with himself and the center of a marriage that sometimes barely held together. You may have seen him on that BET stage. Let's go back in time. Kim Franklin and Kirk Franklin have been married since 1996. People outside of their family thought they were perfect because they were having a mixed-race family, being very religious, and being involved in ministry. Things weren't nearly as smooth behind closed doors, though. A few years ago, Kirk was honest about his problems with being addicted to pornography. These problems started when he was young and lasted into his adult years, even when he became a church star. Kirk said in his own words that he was spiritually talented but spiritually broken. Think about being a voice of faith around the world while secretly drowning in shame. Even worse, think about how that made Tammy feel. There were times when I wanted to leave. In a previous interview, Tammy said, "But God told me to stay because things will get better." It didn't happen overnight, though. The couple went through a lot of treatment, public criticism, and even questions about whether Kirk's ministry was real. But the stress didn't end there. A leaked phone call between Kirk and his separated oldest son, Carrion, made the news again in 2021. In the video, Kirk could be heard using bad words to get mad at his son. Fans were shocked to hear from a man who is known for teaching love and forgiveness. Had to say sorry in public, but that wasn't the real problem. There was drama in the family that got out into the general eye. Fans were split. Kirk seemed like a good dad, but was he really that good? Or was the family man image just that? An image? She stood by him the whole time. When other people questioned his leadership, she prayed for him. She held him close when the church turned its back on them. Tammy is said to have told Kirk, "You were called not just to be perfect, but to be honest," when Kirk was thinking about leaving the stage. The moment at the BET Awards wasn't just a sweet honor. That woman who decided to fight for her husband in public and in private was finally recognized after a long time. Also, most people don't know this. During some times, divorce records were written. They were apart for long periods of time and even whispered to each other. Yes, there were rumors of cheating on both sides. Nothing of it was ever proven, but the quiet around it was so loud it hurt. Some say Kirk and Tammy made a deal years ago, but never said it out loud. No matter what, stay together in public but heal behind closed doors. And that deal was tested more times than anyone thought. But it gets even more serious here. We'll talk about the tension behind the scenes at this year's BET Awards in the next part. Some people in the gospel business think there's more going on between Kirk and them than he's willing to say. The BET Awards may look nice for the cameras, but anyone who works in show business knows that the real action is always going on behind the scenes. It was the same this year too. Even though Kirk Franklin's moving speech stole the show, there was a completely different story going on behind the scenes. Since then, people who were close to the event have said that emotions were high before the show. Why? Because not everyone in the gospel community was happy that Kirk Franklin was given the highest award for an icon. Take that in. Some insiders think Kirk's personal problems made him a risky choice for such a legacy-defining award, even though he has a long list of accomplishments, new music, and cultural effect. It was said that in the weeks before the ceremony, BET producers, sponsors, and famous gospel singers had heated arguments behind closed doors. Some people are said to have asked, "Why now? What do we mean when we praise someone whose public record is so shady? Are we praising shame or forgiveness?" This is where things get messy. A lot of important gospel figures, including past collaborators, were missing from the crowd during Kirk's talk. Almost right away, rumors began to spread. Was it the time or a quiet protest? What's even more telling? According to a source inside BET, some organizers had to push gospel musicians hard to post tributes or congrats to Kirk on social media, and some did, but some people were strangely quiet. Then there was the awkward time backstage when Kirk ran into an old enemy in the business. A person who was close to the production said there was a short conversation with tense body language and low tones. The source said that not everyone came to party. Some people came to tell him that forgetting doesn't mean you forgive. Fans noticed some strange things happening during the live show, which made things worse. Some people in the crowd stayed seated during Kirk's standing ovation. Some of them were old gospel faces. Even though it might not have been bad, someone saw it. Even so, Kirk stood on that stage with a message of grace, humility, and respect, even though people looked at him funny or made fun of him. She did it for Tammy, not for himself. He seemed to be aware that the air was tense but chose to rise above it anyway. But here's the catch. Some fans think Kirk said more than just thank you in this speech. It was a smart move to take back control of his story and shut down the doubters, critics, and foes with an emotional tribute to his wife. Was it really real? Of course. But was it also very well planned? That's where thoughts begin. Start to split up. We'll learn more about how Kirk Franklin is using his faith fame and family to rebuild a legacy that was almost lost in the next part. We'll also look at what his public statements about his future in gospel music mean. It's now clear that Kirk Franklin's time on stage at the BET Awards wasn't just a thank you speech. It was the end of a carefully rebuilt story about salvation that had been going on for almost 20 years. Also, don't think that Kirk Franklin just got over the scandal and the criticism that followed. He completely changed his public image by following a plan that many famous people try to follow, but very few actually do. Let's look at what he did. Step 1. Being completely honest and taking responsibility for what's wrong. Before it was cool to own your truth, Kirk Franklin was getting on stage in churches and stadiums to talk about his problems. Kirk was brave enough to tell everyone about everything, from the fact that he was abandoned by his parents to his pornography addiction to the fact that he and his son Carrion no longer talk to each other. He didn't wait to be caught. He put himself out there. By doing that, he calmed down critics and earned the respect of an age that values being real over being perfect. Kirk once preached at a huge Dallas church, "I'm not perfect, I'm proof." Fans who had made their own mistakes but still kept their faith became united behind that one line. This became the basis of his plan to get better, using honesty as a tool instead of a weakness. Step 2 is to be consistent over time. After his first problems, let the work speak for itself. He wasn't gone, but he didn't tweet it as much for a while. This was to show that he had changed, not that he had disappeared. He kept putting out hit records. He kept helping out young artists. He worked with neighborhood groups and went to prisons. Spoke out for mental health in the black church. There wasn't a big PR rebranding. Instead, there was steady character work, the kind that turns bad news into good news. And over time, even his enemies started to change their minds. Gospel gatekeepers who used to question his decisions couldn't deny what he had done. Younger artists started calling him Uncle Kirk. Pastors who used to stay away from him started quoting him again. Step 3. Changing the way the story is told. It's not just a spiritual story for Kirk. It's also a highly personal one with his family, and he knows it. Because of this, his BET speech wasn't about awards, numbers, or even God. It was about Tammy. He changed what it means to leave a legacy by focusing on his wife. It wasn't about getting over addiction or writing million-selling songs. It meant being manly enough to say, "This woman held me together when I was falling apart. Without her, wouldn't be here." Think about what that message means to people around the world. In a time when black marriages are often seen as temporary or broken, told everyone that commitment can still be holy, even when things go wrong. From a gospel singer to a living example of grace, grit, and growth, that moment changed the Kirk Franklin brand. And now for the last brilliant move. Step 4. The platform turns. Faith and power meet. As of 2022, has used his fame more and more to talk about bigger cultural problems like race, trauma, church hurt, and even generational curses. He has been giving more talks at colleges, on podcasts, and in panels. It's no longer just a show for him, but he is trying to show that he is a star in thought and that he will leave behind ideas rather than music. With this new award from BET, Kirk has become even more of a societal icon because of how he dealt with his flaws, not because of them. One more trick though, and it might catch you off guard. Some people close to Kirk think he's not done yet. Apparently a documentary deal is in the works. It will be a raw, behind-the-scenes look at the worst years of his life, with comments from Tammy, his children, and even Carrion, his estranged son. If it's true, this could be the end of Kirk's journey to change his ways or the beginning of a whole new age. Kirk Franklin's moving moment at the 2025 BET Awards was about more than just being praised. It was about making things right, changing the rules of church fame and redemption. This wasn't just a Lifetime Achievement Award for a true star. He stood tall in the spotlight with humility, grace, and thanks. Even though he was going through personal storms, scandalous news stories, and family chaos. Think about how heavy that is. Not long ago, this man was being shamed online for having a bad relationship with his son, whom he doesn't talk to. A man who was honest about his struggles with deep trauma, addiction, and mental brokenness. a man who many people thought had gone too far from the normal gospel message. Still, that man got the loudest applause at one of the biggest nights in black theatre. Why? It's because nobody wants to be perfect anymore. They want proof that things that are broken can be fixed. That scandal can be turned into testimony, and that faith, family, and marriage can still hold a memory together in a time when fame comes and goes quickly. Kirk's ode to Tammy was more than just sweet. It was a sign. It made us all remember that behind every famous person is a private war, and there is often a quiet hero who holds them together. Also, let's not forget about the effect on culture. That's bold love. A black man praising his wife in public, not for the attention but for the emotional work she does and her loyalty. A gospel singer who is open about his life in front of millions of people, not hiding it. That's a strong faith. A place that used to be full of scandal is now a lighthouse for healing and hope. That's huge relief. When things come full circle, it doesn't happen very often, but that night it did. Fans, reviewers, and people who write about culture won't forget it for a long time. After this, where does Kirk go? If the rumors about a Raw documentary or book coming out are true, we may soon see the deepest part of his story. One that's not just about his work, but also about the soul of a man who lost, learned, and loved more because of it. The most important thing to remember is that your past does not define your reputation. What you say about it does, and Kirk Franklin just did the bravest, most memorable thing to show that. What we want you to do next if this story touched, inspired, or challenged you. If you believe in second chances, please like this movie. Write your favorite Kirk Franklin song or tell us what his story means to you in the space below. Someone might need to see this video to remember that it's never too late to change the story. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful behind-the-scenes stories about gospel stars, legends, and times when things went wrong that the mainstream media won't touch. Until then, stay true to yourself, have hope, and never give up on the power of one last chance.